Good morning. Thank you for attending. My name is Joe Clore. I'm the Executive Director of the Arizona Police Association, representing approximately 12,000 public safety professionals, including law enforcement, corrections, detention, constables, and probation officers from federal, state, county, and municipal agencies across Arizona. 5 years ago, Arizona voters approved Prop 207, which provided for very limited distribution of THC products, including beverages. Currently, there are just 170 locations in the entire state where an adult 21 years old or older can purchase products with THC, including beverages. Senate Bill 1556 would increase the number of locations that sell THC products from 170 to more than 12,000. Every liquor store, beer and wine store, bar, beer and wine club, hotel, motel, convenience store, or restaurant in the state can apply to sell these drinks, and the Department of Liquor must approve all applications without a hearing. On March 24th of this year, Attorney General Mays issued a letter making clear that the sale of THC-infused beverages without a marijuana establishment license is illegal. The fact that some businesses are currently breaking the law should not be justification to rush a bill to legalize the illegal actions of the hemp industry. None of my members were consulted in drafting this bill. In fact, we had our first stakeholder meeting less than 2 weeks ago. If we had been consulted, we would have explained that the enforcement of laws against impairment from THC are much more complex to enforce than typical DUI because of the science, or more likely the lack thereof. Expanding access to these drinks by 7,000% is simply not reasonable. We have no idea how that will impact enforcement or public safety. 5 years ago, voters passed the Smart and Safe Arizona Act. Today, we ask House members to vote against Senate Bill 1556 because it is neither smart nor safe. Thank you. Sheriff?
Good morning. David Rhodes, Yavapai County Sheriff, President of the Arizona Sheriff's Association. Thank you all for coming. We, the Arizona Sheriff's Association, signed in opposition of Senate Bill 1556. It was known as the hemp bill, for a few reasons. The primary reason, though, was that the arguments that were being used to advance the bill were that this was an unregulated product that was being sold to children, and it needed rules, laws, and regulations around it to prevent the sale to children, to prevent any other public safety issues. When we heard this and realized what was happening, did our own research, we were never consulted about Senate Bill 1556. We concluded, and I think rightfully so, working with Attorney General Chris Mays, working with the Arizona County Attorneys Association and Maricopa County Attorney Rachel Mitchell, that these THC-infused drinks that were being produced as an intoxicant for consumption were already illegal to be sold anywhere other than the dispensaries under Arizona law. The law was crystal clear in our view. We took opposition to the bill. We joined with Attorney General Mays, Maricopa County Attorney Rachel Mitchell, and the Arizona County Attorneys Association to oppose 1556, to craft a cease and desist letter, to send to the manufacturers and distributors, to advise them that they were currently breaking Arizona law. We also found that the arguments or the need to regulation circumvented the entire tenets, the underpinnings of Proposition 207. Proposition 207 was established as a voter initiative by the people that put a regulatory structure in place for the use of THC recreationally as an intoxicant. Hemp, there was obviously a portion, a carve out for industrial hemp, but it was never contemplated to be used the way that it was. The cities, the towns, public safety, community groups, everybody with a vested interest in where these products could be sold, should be sold, or how they should be regulated were not involved in the construction of Senate Bill 1556. Arizona sheriffs believe that they should be. There's a number of public safety concerns. Where are these things going to be sold? Are they going to be sold in every gas station, close to schools, wherever it is? And this discussion is going to take a lot more time. And ultimately, if regulation is something that legalization or regulation of these drinks is something that the people, the Arizona legislature, the governor agree on, Arizona sheriffs are there to enforce the law that is determined. But right now, they are against the law, and Arizona sheriffs are going to enforce the law as written. Thank you. Any questions? Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Clay Wells, and I stand here as a physical example of what can happen when a driver is under the influence of THC. On February 25th, 2023, I was one of approximately 70 cyclists out on the Cotton Lane Bridge in Goodyear when we were hit by an 8,000-pound, 3/4-ton Ford pickup going 45 miles an hour. 20 of us were injured, including 2 that were killed, including my good friend, Karen Melissa. There were blood tests taken on the driver and confirmed his levels of THC. And keep this in mind, this is 7 o'clock on a Saturday morning, and he had consumed cannabis the night before celebrating his birthday, which is perfectly legal, and I understand that. But he ran over us. To this day, we don't know why. As I said, he killed 2 and injured 18 others. I spent 2.5 weeks in a coma in an IC unit and 3 months in a recovery hospital. I cannot see the rationale for opening the door even further for cannabis products. And let me go on record with this. I voted for Prop 207. But it has to have guardrails. Cannabis and THC has to have guardrails. And just opening it up wide open, I don't see the benefit of that. And it just puzzles me why a legislature would do something like this. But I hope that this bill goes flaming down in the House of Representatives. I'm not saying that it shouldn't happen, but it needs to be thoughtfully considered in the legislation written that way. So I appreciate you all being here this morning. I'll be here. I'd like to answer any questions you have. I'll be here afterwards.
Good morning. My name is Josh Azevedo. I am a licensed addiction counselor. I operate a program called the Pathway Program, and I've been working with adolescents and young adults ages 13 to about 26 with substance abuse problems and addictions since 1996 here in the Valley. And a lot of the kids that we see, primarily our patients, actually are primary marijuana users. This is the drug that we see that they get a hold of these days. Yes, partially because of the access that has happened is it's easier to get, and the perception of harm has gone down a ton. And the reason that I'm standing out here today and concerned about this bill is anything that makes access more available to teenagers, if they're able to see it as normal And what ends up happening is the way that they perceive the risk of doing this drug goes down, and they see it as something harmless, and it's not. And I end up working with them on a day-to-day basis and their families and all of the problems that marijuana causes in their life. So I'm here to stand against this and to say that I don't think it's a good idea, because I think that it's going to affect our youth in a tremendous way. And we already have had that proliferating since the legalization, which again, I'm not particularly here to weigh on that, but I do know a lot of teenagers are using marijuana and they have easy access to it. So anytime they're going to see a sign or a message that says, this is okay, this is not going to do you any harm, they're going to interpret it as, there's no reason for me not to pick this up and get in trouble with it. And there's a perception that it's not very addictive. That's not true with the teenage mind, for sure. With 14, 15, 16-year-old, there's high potential to get addicted to these chemicals. So thank you for having me here.
Good morning. I'm Rachel Mitchell, Maricopa County Attorney. I came out here today to oppose the passage of 1556. When the voters approved the proposition legalizing marijuana, they did so with very definite parameters. This bill tosses those parameters out and makes THC-laden drinks widely available. As a prosecutor, I can tell you what we will start to see is not just beer runs, but runs by young people on THC-containing drinks. This will jeopardize young people's lives. This will jeopardize other people who are on the street, who are driving. This is not a drink that even falls under open container law. This is not well thought out. It is not well drafted. And currently, this practice is against the law, as stated by the Attorney General. The Maricopa County Attorney's Office stands ready to enforce the law as it is right now to hold people accountable, but we are abiding by the 30-day grace period that the Attorney General gave in her letter that she published last Monday. But I would urge the legislature to think about the safety concerns that this bill presents by making THC drinks so widely available and so available to younger people if they choose to do beer type runs on it. This is not smart and it is not safe, as the bill or the proposition said 5 years ago. It is dumb and it is dangerous, and we would urge the legislature to vote no on this bill.
Anybody have any questions of anybody?
Yes, this kind of all goes back to the federal farm bill of 2018, which legalized apparently the making of these Delta-9 THC-infused products. How difficult will it be to enforce this amid what is apparently federal law that hasn't been rejected yet? And aren't these products available for mail order by the very dispensaries that we have here in Arizona?
I don't know if I'm the best one to talk about federal legislation, but I remember a representative out here walking around with a piece of hemp rope saying that the hemp bill was going to be about rope, not dope, and here we are talking about dope. So I'm not sure that the federal legislation is going to have anything to do with the eventual ability of law enforcement to enforce impaired driving.
Can you ask that again? There was a plane flying over.
Yeah, well, there's this federal farm bill that some people believe legalizes these products, and some of the dispensaries that we have here in Arizona even sell some of these products online and ship them across state lines. Is that legal, for one thing? And how difficult will it be to enforce this law when there's apparent federal, I wouldn't call it legalization, but tolerance of these products?
Well, I think the Attorney General opinion did a good job addressing it. I don't think the federal farm bill resulted in making this a legal act in Arizona, so I think it's still illegal, it's still enforceable. You raise a good point with the people that are shipping these types of drinks, and that's certainly something that needs to be addressed. But at this point, selling them outside of the scheme that was approved by the voters is not legal and should be and will be enforced if continued.
Just wanted to clarify something. So, are there currently stores or places that are selling these legally, or this law you're speaking out against this law to prevent anything further from happening?
My understanding is that, well, and I know that there have been businesses up to this point that have been selling beverages that have THC in them, yes.
Legal.
No, it's a violation of the law.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm sorry, it's hard to hear with the plane, yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah, this
Okay.
is not for anybody here, really. I know the bill passed the Senate pretty handily, so I was curious if this came on to everyone's radar after that happened, and what are the, what kind of efforts are underway with speaking to lawmakers?
Well, I don't want to go into a lot of details about that, but obviously we're here today to persuade the lawmakers not to pass it further along in the process.
May's put out her opinion over a year ago now, and I realize there's this 30-day window now, but why haven't law enforcement done anything up till now about these products, especially when you have like major retailers like Total Wine putting them out there?
Let me defer to law enforcement on that.
Yeah, I will answer your question and your question at the same time. As president of the Arizona Sheriff's Association, I spent a lot of time here at the legislature. We're tracking a lot of public safety bills. The very first time that I ever heard of this, or any of the sheriffs actually heard of it, was in the Public Safety Committee in the Senate, and I heard testimony, like I mentioned earlier, that this bill was necessary to protect children from being able to buy these drinks. And as I was listening to the testimony, I was quite confident that the law was already pretty crystal clear about what was legal, what was the intent of Prop 207, the intent of the Farm Bill of 2018. And so we did our own research, and that's when I really began to understand where these things were being sold. They were being sold, as you mentioned, a number of retailers. And then you mentioned that the dispensaries were selling them and shipping. This is what happens when the laws are not enforced. As you start to have businesses that start to, gain a competitive advantage by disobeying or disrespecting a law or the intent of the law, the intent of the voters. And then other businesses react. You either get competitive and start behaving in that way and doing business in that way, or you don't make as much money as the businesses that are breaking the law. And so I think that level setting, which is what the cease and desist letter does, and establishing a position that if Arizonans as a society, if the legislature, if the governor, they want new laws, they can certainly go do that. But these are the laws as they exist right now. The THC products, which are produced as an intoxicant for consumption, for recreation, must be sold in the dispensaries. Anything other than that requires a change of the law. And the change of the law really should involve significant stakeholder involvement, because matters of public safety, like we mentioned, like you heard, matters of public health, children, where are these things going to be sold? How is it going to be done? Is it even necessary or worth it? That's really how we got involved in all of this. And so I hadn't seen it personally on a store shelf anywhere. I heard about it here at the legislature.
Okay, if there's no more questions, that'll be conclude our press conference, and thank you for coming.